If you are over 60 and you check your blood pressure every morning, I need you to stop for a moment and ask yourself something very simple. Are you doing it the right way? Not whether you have a good monitor, not whether you take it seriously, but whether the exact series of steps you follow every single morning, the ones that have become so automatic you barely think about them anymore, are actually giving you an accurate reading or quietly misleading you and your doctor in ways that could affect every medication decision made on your behalf for years. I'm Dr. Nathan Cole, and I have spent more years than I can count sitting across from patients whose blood pressure was being managed based on numbers that were never truly accurate to begin with. Numbers that were too high because of how the reading was taken, numbers that triggered medication, increases that were never actually needed. Numbers that caused anxiety that raised the blood pressure further, which triggered more medication, which caused side effects that nobody connected to the original error. Today, I want to walk you through the single most common blood pressure measurement mistake I see seniors making every morning, why it happens, what it does to your treatment, and what to do instead. Because the truth is, getting an accurate reading is more complicated than the packaging on your home monitor suggests, and most people over 60 have been doing at least one thing wrong for years without anyone ever correcting them. Before we go further, please subscribe for senior cardiac health guidance that goes beyond what the appointment allows. Let me tell you about Gerald. Gerald was 74. He had been managing his blood pressure at home for 3 years, which his cardiologist had encouraged. He had a good monitor, a Omron brand upper arm cuff monitor, which is the type that clinical guidelines recommend over wrist monitors for accuracy. He took it seriously. He wrote down his numbers every morning in a small notebook. He brought that notebook to every appointment. His doctor looked at the numbers, saw consistent readings in the range of 148 to 162 over 88 to 96, and over the course of 2 years gradually increased Gerald's medication twice, added a second drug to the regimen, and told Gerald that his blood pressure was proving difficult to control. Gerald worried about strokes. He reduced his salt further. He exercised more. The numbers did not move much. His medication list grew. Then one afternoon, a nurse at a follow-up appointment sat with Gerald for 12 minutes before taking his reading. She had him sit quietly without talking. She positioned his arm correctly on the table. She waited. She took the reading twice with a minute between them. She averaged the two results. Gerald's blood pressure that afternoon was 124 over 76. His cardiologist, reviewing the home log against this office reading, asked Gerald to describe exactly how he took his blood pressure at home. Within 2 minutes of that conversation, the problem became clear. And the problem was not the machine. The problem was the morning. Every morning, Gerald woke up, sat on the edge of his bed, and took his blood pressure within 60 to 90 seconds of rising. He was still in mild physical transition from lying to sitting. He had not urinated yet. He had not had water. He had not waited for his body to stabilize. He was sometimes still slightly tense from a dream he half remembered. And he took the reading with his arm resting on his thigh rather than supported on a surface at heart level. Every single one of those conditions, taken alone, can artificially raise a blood pressure reading by between 5 and 20 millimeters of mercury. Taken together, in a person whose cardiovascular system is already less adaptable than it was at 40, they were producing readings that were 15 to 20 points higher than his true resting blood pressure. And those inflated numbers had been driving his treatment for 3 years. This is not a rare story. I have heard versions of it more times than I can count. And I want to be very precise with you about why the morning is the most dangerous time to take a blood pressure reading if you do not know what you are doing. Because the morning creates a unique physiological environment that almost no one explains to patients when they are handed a home monitor and told to track their numbers. In the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking, several things happen in the body simultaneously. The nervous system shifts from the slower parasympathetic state of sleep toward the more activated sympathetic state of wakefulness. Cortisol, the stress hormone, surges to its highest level of the day, which is a normal and necessary biological rhythm. The heart rate increases. The blood vessels constrict slightly in preparation for the demands of the day. Blood pressure rises naturally during this window as part of what physicians call the morning surge, a phenomenon that is normal in healthy adults and more pronounced in older adults. and which peaks roughly 30 to 60 minutes after waking before gradually settling as the day begins. This means that if you measure your blood pressure during the morning surge before your body has had time to stabilize, you are not measuring your resting blood pressure. You are measuring your transitional blood pressure, the pressure your body creates specifically to prepare you for activity after a night of rest. That number is almost always higher than your true baseline. It is not dangerous. It is not pathological. It is physiology. But if your doctor sees that number on paper week after week, month after month, they have no way of knowing it was taken during the surge unless you tell them exactly when and how you took it. And most patients do not tell them because most patients do not know it matters. The second reason the morning is dangerous for measurement is the bladder. A full bladder raises blood pressure. This is not a dramatic effect, but in the range of 6 to 10 millimeters of mercury, it is clinically meaningful. If you wake in the morning, your bladder has been accumulating fluid for 7 or 8 hours. The pressure a full bladder exerts on the internal environment elevates systemic blood pressure in a consistent and measurable way. Taking your reading before emptying your bladder, which is what most people do because it is the first thing they do in the morning, is reliably producing a reading that is higher than it would be 10 minutes later after a bathroom visit and a few minutes of settling. The third factor, and this is the one that almost nobody accounts for, is arm position. Clinical guidelines from the American Heart Association and the European Society of Hypertension are extremely specific about this. The upper arm cuff must be at heart level. Heart level means the midpoint of your upper arm, where the cuff sits, should be at the same height as the fourth intercostal space on the left side of your chest, roughly the level of your nipple on the left side. If your arm is lower than heart level, every centimeter of drop adds approximately 2 millimeters of mercury to the reading. If you are sitting on the edge of a bed with your arm resting on your thigh, as Gerald was, your arm is almost certainly 6 to 10 centimeters below heart level. That position alone can add 10 to 15 points to a systolic reading in consistent, reproducible ways. It is not error in the machine. It is the physics of hydrostatic pressure working against you every morning. The fourth factor is talking, movement, and emotional state in the minutes before measurement. If you have just had a conversation, walked to the bathroom and back, had a minor frustration, felt anxiety about the reading itself, or even checked your phone and read something irritating, your blood pressure is not at rest. The cardiovascular system responds to all of these inputs within seconds. A brief exchange with a family member, a quick walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, the act of hunting for the monitor under a pile of items on the nightstand, all of these generate small but real elevations that have not yet cleared by the time the cuff inflates. And the fifth factor, the one that I believe is the most underappreciated in older adults specifically, is the white coat effect at home. Most people have heard of white coat hypertension, the phenomenon where blood pressure rises at a doctor's office due to the anxiety of the clinical setting. What is less well understood is that the same anxiety response can be triggered at home by the act of measurement itself. In patients who have been told their blood pressure is high, who have been warned about stroke risk, who have been placed on medication and told the numbers matter, the act of picking up the blood pressure monitor every morning can trigger a mild anxiety response that raises the blood pressure that they are about to measure. The reading becomes self-confirming. They worry about a high number, their worry raises the number. They see a high number. Their worry for the next day is reinforced. The cycle repeats. This psychological loop is not weakness. It is a completely normal human response to a health threat, but it means that the ritual of morning blood pressure measurement, the way most people do it, the rushed check on the edge of the bed before the bladder is emptied and before the body has settled, and with the arm in the wrong position and the mind still tangled in the concerns of a new day, is producing data that is systematically biased high. And systematically biased high data fed into a clinical system that trusts numbers on paper leads to systematic overtreatment. Overtreatment of blood pressure in seniors is not a trivial concern. I want to say this clearly because patients often assume that a lower number is always safer, that more medication is always more protective. For younger adults, that assumption has more support. For adults over 65, the relationship between blood pressure, medication intensity, and outcomes is more nuanced. Excessive blood pressure lowering in older adults increases the risk of orthostatic hypotension, the sudden drop in pressure that occurs when you stand, which is a leading cause of falls in this population. Falls lead to fractures. Fractures lead to hospitalizations. Hospitalizations in older adults lead to deconditioning, infection risk, cognitive changes, and for a meaningful percentage of patients, a trajectory of decline from which they never fully return. The medication that was added because of Gerald's inflated morning readings did not protect him from stroke. It did increase his risk of dizziness when he stood from his chair. It contributed to his fatigue. It interacted subtly with another medication he was taking and caused occasional lightheadedness in the afternoon. All of these consequences flowed from a reading that was never accurate, taken every morning in a way that had never been corrected, producing a paper record that looked like evidence of uncontrolled hypertension and was treated as such for 3 years. Let me tell you about Vivian, because her story adds a dimension to this conversation that Gerald's does not. Vivian was 69, recently retired, and she took her blood pressure every morning with considerable anxiety because her mother had died of a stroke at 71. Every morning, the monitor confirmed her worst fears. Her readings ran between 150 and 165 over 90 to 98, with almost mechanical consistency. Her physician had doubled her lisinopril dose 8 months earlier. She had started having occasional dizziness when she stood quickly from the couch. She was told that was a known side effect and to be careful. What nobody had explored with Vivian was the pattern of when and how she took her readings. She took them immediately on waking. She had not emptied her bladder first. She was anxious before, during, and after each reading. She typed the numbers into a spreadsheet she had created specifically to show her doctor. The spreadsheet had a color coding system: red for readings above 150, orange for readings between 140 and 150, green for readings below 140. Her spreadsheet was almost entirely red, and she brought that spreadsheet to every appointment, and her doctor, seeing a column of red cells week after week, managed her care accordingly. When a different physician asked Vivian to take her blood pressure at a different time of day, after she had been awake for at least 30 minutes, after she had used the bathroom, after 5 minutes of sitting quietly without speaking or looking at her phone, with her arm resting on a table at heart level, her readings dropped consistently to the range of 128 to 134 over 80 to 84. She was on double the medication she actually needed. The dizziness when standing, the fatigue in the afternoons, the lightheadedness that had begun to make her reluctant to rise quickly from chairs was not her body failing. It was her blood pressure being pushed lower than it needed to be by medications calibrated to a phantom problem. The right way to take a blood pressure reading at home has been published in clinical guidelines and is freely available, but the information has not made it into the hands of most patients in a usable form. So let me give it to you now, clearly and specifically. First, do not take your blood pressure within 30 minutes of waking. The morning surge takes roughly 30 minutes to an hour to subside in most adults. Wait until you have been awake for at least 30 minutes, preferably 45, before measuring. This single change by itself produces readings that are meaningfully more representative of your true resting blood pressure. Second, use the bathroom before you measure. An empty bladder removes one source of artificial elevation that most people have never been told about. Make it a fixed part of your sequence. Wake, bathroom, wait, measure. Not wake, measure. Everything else. Third, sit in a proper chair, not on the edge of your bed. Your back should be supported. Your feet should be flat on the floor, not dangling or crossed. Your arm should be resting on a table or armrest at heart level, not on your thigh, not held out in the air, on a surface, supported at the approximate height of your mid-chest. If you need to stack a book or two under your arm to get it to the right height, do that. It is not obsessive, it is correct. Fourth, sit quietly for 5 minutes without talking, without your phone, without the television. Not 2 minutes. 5. The cardiovascular system requires time to reach a genuine resting state after any stimulation, and 5 minutes of quiet sitting is the clinical standard for a reason. This is the step most people skip entirely because it seems unnecessary. It is not unnecessary. It is the step that separates an accurate measurement from a convenient one. Fifth, do not speak during the measurement. Do not speak before the cuff has fully deflated. Talking raises blood pressure reliably and immediately. If someone asks you a question while the cuff is inflating, do not answer. Wait. Sixth, take two readings separated by a full minute and average them. Blood pressure varies naturally from moment to moment. A single reading is a snapshot. Two readings with an interval give you a more representative number. If the two readings differ by more than 10 millimeters of mercury on the systolic reading, take a third and average the last two. Seventh, take your reading at the same time each day after following these same steps. Consistency in the process is what gives the numbers meaning. If one morning you follow all the steps correctly and the next morning you rush, the two numbers are not comparable, no matter what the calendar says. And then record and communicate the number honestly. Write down not just the reading, but the time, whether you had urinated, how long you had been awake, and whether anything unusual happened in the minutes before measurement. That context delivered to your physician transforms a raw number into useful clinical information. There is a supplementary mistake that I see almost as frequently as the measurement error itself, and it compounds everything I have described above. Many seniors check their blood pressure multiple times on the same morning whenever they see a reading they find alarming. They take it once, see 155 over 92, feel their heart rate increase with worry, take it again immediately, see 159 over 94, feel more alarmed, take it a third time, see 162 over 96, and now their morning is saturated with anxiety and their blood pressure log shows 3 readings, all high, all taken within 10 minutes of each other, all under conditions of escalating stress. They bring this to their doctor as evidence of dangerously uncontrolled hypertension. It is, in fact, evidence of a normal cardiovascular response to escalating anxiety about an initial reading taken under suboptimal conditions. If you take a reading that seems high, do not immediately retake it. Put the monitor down, leave the room, drink a glass of water, sit quietly for 10 minutes. Then, if you want to verify, take one more reading using proper technique. In the majority of cases, that second reading, taken correctly, will be meaningfully lower. If it is not, that is genuinely useful information, but the sequence of progressively escalating readings taken back to back under growing anxiety is not clinical data. It is a stress response documented in millimeters of mercury. I also want to address the monitor itself, because the device matters in ways that most seniors are not told when they purchase one. Not all home blood pressure monitors are equivalent. The only monitors whose accuracy has been independently validated by the United States Blood Pressure Validated Device Listing, which is a database maintained by the American Medical Association or by the British and Irish Hypertension Society's Validated Device List, are appropriate for clinical home monitoring. Wrist monitors, regardless of brand, are significantly more prone to error from arm position and from arterial stiffness, which increases with age, and clinical guidelines consistently recommend upper arm monitors for adults over 60. If you are using a wrist monitor and your readings seem erratic or persistently high, the device itself may be part of the problem. The cuff size also matters far more than most people realize. A standard adult cuff is designed for an arm circumference of roughly 22 to 32 centimeters. If your arm circumference is larger, a standard cuff will consistently overread your blood pressure because it cannot compress the artery adequately from the outside. This produces falsely elevated systolic readings in a systematic and reliable way. Large adult cuffs exist specifically for arm circumferences above 32 centimeters. Extra large cuffs exist for circumferences above 42 centimeters. If your arm is on the larger side and you have never been told to use a different cuff, it is worth measuring your arm circumference with a soft tape measure and checking whether the cuff you are using is actually sized for your arm. The right cuff can be purchased at any major pharmacy. CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, and Walmart all stock upper arm monitors in multiple cuff sizes. The Omron brand upper arm monitors, particularly the Omron Platinum series and the Omron Gold series, are among the most consistently validated options for home use and are available at all 3 retailers for between $50 and $100. They come with standard adult cuffs, and larger replacement cuffs are available for purchase separately from the same retailers and online. If you are uncertain whether your current monitor has been validated, the American Medical Association's blood pressure device listing website allows you to search by brand and model. Now, I want to address one more layer of this conversation that patients almost never raise and physicians almost never offer, and that is the difference between home measurement and the ambulatory blood pressure monitoring approach. Ambulatory blood pressure monitoring involves wearing a cuff device for 24 hours that takes readings automatically at set intervals throughout the day and night, including during sleep. It is considered the gold standard for diagnosing hypertension because it captures blood pressure across the entire range of daily activities and circumstances, without the white coat effect, without the morning surge, without the measurement anxiety, and without the confound of a single posture or single moment in time. It is available by prescription and is covered by Medicare and most major insurance plans for appropriate indications. If you have been told your blood pressure is difficult to control and your readings at home consistently seem higher than your readings at the office, or lower or wildly variable, ambulatory monitoring is worth asking about. The information it provides is of a fundamentally different quality than any collection of home readings, however carefully taken. A 24-hour profile of your blood pressure tells a story that no morning log can match, and in some cases, it has completely changed the management decisions made for patients who had been on escalating medication regimens for years. Let me tell you what happened to Gerald after the problem was identified. His cardiologist reviewed everything. They discussed changing his measurement technique first, before any medication adjustment, and asked him to record 30 days of readings taken under the corrected protocol. Wait 45 minutes. Bathroom, 5 minutes quiet sitting. Arm on the table at heart level. 2 readings, 1 minute apart, averaged. No phone, no talking. Same time each day. Gerald's 30-day log under the corrected protocol showed an average blood pressure of 128/76. His cardiologist, reviewing the data, had a long conversation with him about carefully stepping back on the second medication that had been added. The dose reduction was done gradually over several weeks with careful monitoring. Gerald's blood pressure remained stable. His dizziness on standing resolved. His afternoon fatigue improved. His anxiety about blood pressure, which had been a constant companion for 3 years, began to ease. Not because his readings were perfect, but because he finally understood what the numbers meant and what they did not mean. He was not cured. He still had hypertension. He still needed medication. But he was being treated for the blood pressure he actually had, rather than the blood pressure his morning ritual had been inventing for 3 years. There is a broader lesson in Gerald's story that I want to leave you with because it applies to far more than blood pressure monitoring. Medicine after 60 requires active participation in a way that it simply does not at 40. The body changes. The medications that work on a 60-year-old body need regular review for a 70-year-old body. The measurements that drive treatment decisions are only as good as the method used to take them. And the information that reaches your physician is only as accurate as the process that produced it. You are not a passive recipient of medical decisions. You are a partner in them. And the single most powerful contribution you can make to that partnership is bringing accurate information. Not alarming information, not reassuring information. Accurate information, taken under conditions that give the numbers their actual meaning. If this conversation has made you question the way you have been taking your blood pressure every morning, that questioning is not anxiety. It is wisdom. Because the difference between a measurement taken correctly and one taken incorrectly can be 20 points on a systolic reading. And 20 points can be the difference between a medication increase that was necessary and one that was never needed in the first place. Check your technique before you check your medication. Verify your cuff size before you accept a difficult-to-control diagnosis. Take the 5 minutes of sitting quietly before you take the reading that your doctor will act on. These are not small adjustments. In the long arc of managing blood pressure after 60, they may be the most important things I have ever told a patient. Take care of yourself, pay attention to the process, and not just the number, and I will see you in the next video.